All right, I'm super excited to have, or we're super excited. Many of us that know Nakesha are excited to have her here with us today. And what a great person to agree to come into our presence and into our community and be able to share. Those of you who know Nakesha know she's quite a dynamic person with just a great set of giftings and skills that make her definitely quite special. She's also a poet, and she's just a great, I believe, voice for us to listen to in these times. And just so grateful for her agreeing to come and be a part of us today. Nakesha, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Church of the Covenant Online.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Nakesha, if you could just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and let us know a little bit more about you, so that our community, especially for those that haven't had the chance to meet you, can see you and kind of understand a little bit more about your personal context. That would be great.
Okay. Let's see. The way I introduce myself to people really depends on what the setting is, because I wear different hats in different spaces. I'm a mom. I have two children, a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old girl. So that's fun. I have a couple of different jobs. I work for Virginia Cooperative Extension as a nutrition educator. I also work for the Academy of the Arts as their Officer of Equity, and I'm starting a new position with Life Skills Institute out of Parkview Community Mission, helping them kind of coordinate their programming and overseeing all the classes that they have there.
That certainly gives us, wow, it's like so many jobs and pieces that you're involved in, and all at the same time necessarily doesn't define you, because you are you. And of course that's the amazing unwrapping that each of us kind of have to go through, are these layers of us. But a very impressive person, definitely, in how you're able to work and live in the community, and in work in these crucial positions of whether you're helping with the standard of living and nutrition, or you're helping in helping being inclusive, or as the equity officer in the academy. There's so many aspects there. And then I didn't even know about the Parkview Mission Life Skills piece. So there's so many pieces there to explore. But I was taken most by immediately saying you're a mother of two teenage kids, and that was enough, because that in and of itself begins to tell a story of incredible parenting that must be involved every day as you journey together. Can you tell us a little bit more about your life here in Lynchburg, and just, I mean, how that's progressed over the years? Whatever you're comfortable with is fine, but more and more of your story of who you are is so impacting, and I think it could be helpful for many to understand a little bit more about that.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Gretna, Virginia. If you've heard of it, the joke is usually that people ride right through it going somewhere else. The town slogan is, Gretna, it ain't no big thing, but it's growing. My mom, I moved out of Gretna. I came in 2000. I came to go to Lynchburg College. Went there for a year. Went through some things and decided to make the mistake of taking a year off. It was just going to be a year. That was 20 years ago. Life kind of happened. Let's see, I guess the next milestone after college, I went through a pretty tragic personal loss. My firstborn son, he was born early and he passed away when he was a week old. And that kind of devastated me, as I'm sure you can imagine. And it's kind of stuck in a rut for quite a while. I was in not a great relationship. And the relationship kind of got to the point where I had to either leave or die, is what it felt like. Stuck in the cycle of abuse. I needed to find a place. I lived with this person and I didn't go back to work after the death of my son. So I was financially dependent on this person as well. So I went all over Lynchburg trying to find a place to live, Section 8 housing, somewhere that could be based on income, because I didn't have any. I couldn't afford anything. I ended up at Lynchburg Covenant Fellowship. This was probably 2004-ish. I don't remember the woman that I spoke with, but I told her kind of what was going on. I was moving into my apartment in Shalom Apartments 2 days later. I didn't really have anything. My brother, who was in the military but in town briefly, bought me a bed. And so I will never forget what Shalom meant to me, because I'll always look at it as the first place where I made positive choices for myself independently. And I lived there for a few years, had a couple of kids. Then I moved around a little bit here and there. I didn't always have a job. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. My oldest son, who's the 16-year-old now, he kind of struggled early on. He was autistic. We know now, we didn't know at the time, but he had a lot of trouble. His speech wasn't great. I could understand him. He and I had our own little language, but when it came time to go to school, that didn't really, the teachers didn't know his language. But, to fast forward 16 years later, he's fine. I have to remind myself when he's talking that 16 years, 14 years ago, I would have given anything to hear him speak, because now he won't stop. So that is great. But early on, that did require a lot of energy. For me, I had different jobs. I've worked at McDonald's. I've worked as a housekeeper. I worked at convenience stores, but I would always run into the same problem of not being able to get to work, whether it would be transportation issue, whether I missed the bus. And so, Lynchburg is not like a big city. If you miss one bus, you got to wait another hour before the next one comes. And, jobs don't really like that. Or if it snowed, and so the kids were home with me, and so I couldn't leave them because they were too young. But all of those things kind of started happening. And a lot of the jobs were part-time. What I considered at the time a pretty good job. I was making $7.50 an hour. And I was cleaning up at the University on the Mountain. But it was full-time and there were benefits. So I was pretty excited about the job, and it was also consistent. It was on the bus route. But as soon as I got that job, like, all the other stabilizing factors in my life shifted, because I had been on TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, prior to that, and also food stamps, now called EBT. So as soon as I got the job and started feeling like I could move myself to better position myself for the future, all of that is taken away. If you're familiar with that social services or that system, some people call it welfare at all, you can only do so well under those limits, right? So it was a really strange situation that I found myself in, where working a full-time job, having access to benefits, using public transportation, but without the safety net of food stamps or rental assistance or any type of financial assistance, I had less money working than I did when I was unemployed. And it got to the point where I couldn't afford bus fare to make it to work. I had to quit my job. I couldn't physically get there. And so I don't know what the rules are now, but at the time, you could only be on financial assistance for a shorter period of time. So even though I was unemployed now, I still didn't necessarily get access to all of those resources. It's like that for a while. Fast forward, I guess, till about 2014. My son brought home a flyer from school for a free nutrition and cooking class. I went to the class. It was at Jubilee Community Center. The best thing about the class was that it was on the bus route, so I could get a day pass for $4 and get to the class and get back home while my kids were in school. And if I'm being honest, I didn't necessarily go for the nutrition aspect of the class. I went because as part of the program, whatever lesson you had that day, whatever meal, because we cooked together, whatever meal we made, we got bags of groceries to take home to be able to make that same meal. So that's why I went. I went so that that was at least 2 days worth of food for my family for a $4 bus pass. So that was the plan. Little did I know the teacher would be who I now consider my friend, one of my best friends, Janelle Smith. And because I was taking the bus, with the timing of it, I would either be at the class 20 minutes early or like 5 minutes late. My mother raised me to always be early, right? So I would be there early, and I'm an introvert. I would sit in the corner, and Janelle would pull me out and make me talk, and she made me trust her and not see her as this, I'll be frank, white lady who come to the hood to teach people. Because she saw me, I could see her. And she decided we were going to be friends. And she won me over. And one day she called and told me that her or the organization she worked for, Virginia Cooperative Extension, was hiring someone, and she wanted me to apply. And I told her that I didn't know about that because I don't think I'm qualified. And she's like, of course you're qualified. So I'm not qualified on paper, right? If you meet me, it's different. But if you just are looking at my resume or an application, I can't explain on a piece of paper why I have huge gaps in my employment history. I can't put all of that in writing. But she told me to trust her and apply. So I did. And I got the job. And that's another milestone, because that was the first time, and it's the job I still have, first time I ever had a job that paid what we would consider a living wage. And losing rental assist, financial assist, like it didn't matter because I was better off, right? All I needed was that 2 weeks to get that first paycheck, and everything else kind of fell into place. I was able to start saving money. I was able to take my kids to Roanoke, to museums, which, Roanoke is not that far. Richmond is not that far. But to take the bus or the train there, spend the night in a hotel in a museum to my kids, that was a big vacation because they'd never been anywhere. So I could live different. I could breathe different. I didn't have to worry so much every second of every day that something was going to happen and I wouldn't be able to afford whatever the dilemma was. Then I think I was watching local television. I don't remember if it was a commercial or one of the local talk show interviews, but there was a segment about Habitat for Humanity. And something just said, you should apply. So I called the Habitat office. They kind of told me the process that I need to first, come to an information session. And if at the end of the information session, I wanted to apply, I could apply. So I signed up for that. I went to the hour-long session with Greg Tyree, and he kind of walked us through, me and 50 other people in a room, walked us through that process. And again, I'll be honest, I looked at everyone else in that room wondering if they were my competition. It's like, how many houses can we actually build here? But as he walked us through that process, I realized that I didn't qualify. I didn't have the minimum credit score that you needed. I didn't have. So I took the application anyway, and I left and I went home and read through the application. And I signed up for Credit Karma to the free credit reporting service to actually know what my credit score was, because I knew it wasn't 600, which was the minimum you needed, but I didn't know what it was. I don't remember what it was now, but it was 5 something, low 5 something. So I spent the next year paying off debt, making payment arrangements, and I raised my credit score to where it was over the 600. And a year later, I went back to Habitat for the information session, filled out the application. A couple of months went by, and I got the letter in the mail that I was approved. I kept it. One of the hardest things I had to do was not be excited. I did not want to have that experience without my kids being, oh gosh, I don't want to cry. I didn't want to have that experience alone, because even to this day, my kids say they didn't know we were poor. But they were there struggling as well. So I had to wait till they got home from school, and they got home at different times. So my son got home, I had to act like everything was normal, do your homework. And then once my daughter got home, I called him in the room and we all sat together and I read the letter and we all started crying. And it's probably the longest family hug we've ever had. And so all the joy and all the relief that I felt, they felt it too. And I hope I never forget that moment. And that was in October of 2017. We broke ground on my home in February. I moved in the last week of May in 2018. So I'm a homeowner now. When you go through that process, if you don't know, you have to do, I think it's 200 or 300 volunteer hours. Whatever it was, I did a significant amount more. My jobs were lucky enough to give me the flexibility to be able to come and work as much as I want to. They had volunteer days where my coworkers came. I had random people from that were my Facebook friends come and help. But it's also one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had, to know that even days when I couldn't make it here to help work on my house, that other people did. They were volunteering their time. People who have worked a lifetime and, were retired and who could be in Florida or on a beach somewhere, were here on their hands and knees, like nailing down, building my floor, on my roof, just all of these things. It's miraculous almost. And with the way the world is now, and there's so much to be upset about, so much to be depressed about, so much to be afraid of. So far, over 2 years later, every time I leave my home, when I come back and pull into the driveway and I see my front door, it's a very pretty teal. I love my door. I don't know what the emotion is that I feel, but it's warmth. And it's kind of calming and centering, because just for that second, seeing that door reminds me of everything that I've been through, everything that I've had, everything that I've lost, but also that there is so much good in the world. I don't know how else to express like the way it feels to know, like even I'm sitting here at my kitchen table in my living room, knowing that I helped build this, right? And so did 50 strangers, just to help. And, kind of to circle back to the different jobs that I have. And I think the reason it's my instinct to introduce myself by what I do, because I kind of do identify by my jobs. I don't think there was any shame in working at the McDonald's or the hotel or Liberty cleaning, none of that. But that's a different type of service. In all the jobs that I have now, in any position that I take, I have one requirement. I need to help people. I need to help people like me. And so whether it's cooking classes, diversity and inclusion, organizing, facilitating classes, I've been that person in need. I've been the person who needs help. And I've sat across from people who I knew sat in judgment of me. I've sat across from people who have said that poverty is a choice. I've sat in the same room with people and seen them look at me as less than, and you can feel the disgust and the judgment. Feeling that way, it's hard not to internalize. It's hard not to wear it as a shame or feel to blame for the situation that you're in. So with all of my jobs, I want to do my best to make sure other people don't have to feel that way. No one should ever be ashamed of needing help. One thing I can say, hopefully from the times we're living in now, is that I hope that some people's eyes who may not have seen it before, are open now to understand that stuff happens and it can happen to anyone. I don't say that life doesn't discriminate, but tragedy comes in all shapes and forms, and it can impact anyone. And I do not know where I would be if Shalom Apartments wouldn't have let me move in 2 days later, if Janelle wouldn't have made me be her friend, if I wouldn't have saw that commercial or advertisement for Habitat on the television, if I wouldn't have went back. I don't know, but I know that for everything to work out the way it has so far, for the past 2 years at least, I know that no matter what happens, once I'm dead and gone, my children will always have a place to live. And that's a type of reassurance I never had before. It's a type of comfort that I never had before. When you're a single parent, living below the poverty line, you can't. I couldn't have a will, because I couldn't have the option of death as a possibility in my mind. Because if I'm not here for my kids, then what? Now I can plan for the future. Not that anyone wants to do that, but I can know that they will always be provided for, and they'll always have the one thing that we all deserve to have, a roof over their heads. Dan, I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for. I went on so many tangents here.
You have given us more than we could ever have in a lifetime of stories. First of all, can I light a candle to honor your son that you lost? Can I do that for you?
You're going to make me cry some more. Thank you.
There's no doubt he's present with you now and has been present with you through all of this. You are a wonderful, beautiful, amazing person. Resilient and just a survivor that has done so much and will do so much more. And we are just honored that you would let us listen. Thank you, lovingly. Thank you so, so, so much. You're making me cry. Thank you, Nakesha.
Thank you.